VTuber lore. Those vagaries that curse my nightmares and drive me to many mad conspiratorial rants. Now, some may claim that there's no real purpose to VTuber lore, that it's all just a formality to create a mental barrier between the viewer, the character, and the streamer. Those people are probably right. But I've wasted too much time and effort on listening to and decoding this stuff for me to just give up now. Thus, my sunk cost fallacy continues. I remember the first time I seriously thought about VTuber lore was when my friends first sent me the teaser for the Holo Council debut. I sat there, eyes glued to the screen, faintly proclaiming, "What the hell does any of this mean?" The confusion we all felt was palpable. We'd all been there for HoloLive EN from day one, and the prospect of a second wave was very exciting. We expected lots of different things, but we never expected a new history textbook, theoretical physics theory, religious doctrine? I'm gonna be honest, rewatching it now still leaves me very confused. But time has passed, I've since earned my PhD in VTuber lore conspiracy, and Dr. Sekai is here to help you understand just what's going on in the world of HoloLive EN. Or at least whatever I've made up about what's going on in the world of HoloLive EN. Now, as always, the rules are simple. The focus of this video and the theories therein are going to be on the debuts of each member as well as any clear lore videos and songs. I am but one man with my own responsibilities in life, so I don't have hundreds upon hundreds of hours to pour over every single stream to pick out every little crumb of lore hinted at or casually mentioned over the past 2 years. Thus, we treat the debuts as the most canon and verifiable pieces of lore that we can get, and I'll leave it to you all to help me fill in the gaps down below with things that I likely have missed in all the other streams. Well, now comes the part where I have no other ways to pad out this intro, so let's get started. Say hello to HoloLive English Myth, aka HoloMyth, the debut for which was, well, quite honestly a huge moment in the world of VTubers. There were already English-speaking VTubers, obviously, but HoloMyth marked the first foray of one of the big names into the English-speaking audience. And debuting right as the VTuber craze was starting to pick up, the 5 members burst onto the scene with an explosive presence. Starting off with the rapping reaper who has reaped the hearts of many, we have Calliope Mori. She's the first apprentice of death and resides in the underworld, which apparently has shit internet. However, she's on hiatus from being a Reaper due to a lack of deaths. Mori decided to become a VTuber to collect souls, since medical technology has been keeping people alive longer, and apparently souls, quote, vaporized by the wholesome relationships of VTubers flow directly to her? She's also existed since things have been alive, which is actually a moment we'll be able to possibly pinpoint later. Some other unrelated things that I felt like pointing out, Calliope may not have a heart. Additionally, the architecture of hell matches the current timeline, and anything that dies goes to the underworld, not just living beings. Which means Ska's probably down there, and if that's true, I'm on my way, Mori. I will see you soon. Who am I kidding? Ska will never die. It shall only be reborn, stronger and more powerful each time it fades to ashes. Just like our next VTuber, Kiara Takanashi. Kiara's debut begins with a storybook version of her origins. Before humans roamed the earth and while mythical creatures existed in plenty, there was a young phoenix named Kiara. Over the next several thousand years, she did lots of things and had lots of adventures, even becoming an idol at some point. Though every few hundred years she did what phoenixes do best and died before being reborn from her own ashes. But because nothing can be simple in the realm of VTuber lore, apparently every time she was reborn, she would find herself in another dimension. And here I was thinking that this would be one of the easier stories. After a while, Kiara started to notice that there were significantly fewer phoenixes across all the dimensions. Thus she decided to become a human in her next life and aim for world domination. Because no VTuber group is complete unless one of them has plans for world domination. And so, today is the day that she rises again and sets out on her new quest. Or rather, September 12th, 2020 was the day. Now this immediately just messes with everything. Period. The existence of other dimensions instantly raises the question of how similar each one is. For example, is it only our world where mythical creatures don't exist? Or was that also our universe and they've just been forgotten? In how many universes did Huke-sama make Black Rock Shooter to the degree that Kiara knew it was the same creator in our world if she had just gotten here? If Callie knows and continues to reject Kiara, does that mean that the underworld is exempt from the multiverse? Are Phoenix Death's QPU aligned? It's a joke for all the Watch for Rolling Rocks fans out there. 0.5 VTuber Lord Christ. These questions probably make no sense, but that's the risk you take when you add multi-dimensional death warping into the mix. And trust me, things are only gonna get more confusing from here. As for other tidbits, Kiara's goal is to open the perfect fast food restaurant, and honestly, I wasn't expecting that to be the way that she was gonna take over the world, but I won't complain if the food's good. Also, one of Kiara's dislikes is one-sided feelings, and that just kinda makes me sad. I feel you, Kiara. I feel you. But hey, at least she's got some sick weapons and a Kamen Rider belt. You know, they say looking at an eldritch being causes one's mind to shatter due to the incomprehensible nature of what one would see. Thankfully, my mind shattered long ago, so we can move right on along to Ninomiai Inanis. According to her little biography section, Ina picked up a strange book and gained the power of controlling tentacles. Becoming a priestess of the Ancient Ones, she begins hearing ancient whispers, but due to seemingly maintaining her sanity, she now works as a VTuber in order to deliver random sanity checks, which I am most certainly failing. Here's the thing though, that Necronomicon says it's a prize, which begs the question, where's the carnival where I can win a Necronomicon from winning the ring toss? Also, Ina's trying to achieve world domination too, so I guess we'll see how that plays out between her and Kiara. Personally, I'd prefer fast food to endless mental torture at the hands of ancient beings beyond my mortal comprehension, but that's just me. Alright, simple enough so far, not really much that contradicts one another. We've just got some questions. Like, has Callie known Kiara since the beginning, or is it the Callie of our universe who has just met this new Kiara, as the PV implies, and that's why she's so cold? What do the Ancient Ones want with us that VTubing was the most effective way to capture our minds? Actually, that last question is kinda dumb given what I'm doing and you're watching right now, because clearly their plan has worked. I mean, at this point, if Mori has my soul, Ina has my mind, and Kiara has my wallet, then the VTuber world domination plans are really on track to just take every part of us at this point. And there goes my heart. I love sharks, and my need to be a dad and to protect just flares up immediately upon seeing Gura. I don't care if she's 9,900 years older than me. The urge to protect doesn't care about age. Also, I still will just randomly drop in whenever I'm bored and alone. Oh, and the city pop. Can you tell there's not a lot of lore in this one? But lore-wise, Gura is from the lost city of Atlantis. Apparently it's a pretty mid place to live, so Gura came up to the land to experience all the cool stuff we have. That's pretty much it. Anyways, drugs?
This is what I used to offer Mr. Holmes. He used to call it a Watson's concoction.
Amelia Watson, the genius detective who will help us tie all of this together, hopefully, maybe, I don't know, probably not. For her own lore, Amelia began investigating HoloLive and wound up becoming an idol herself, and aside from illegal drug testing, that's it. See, for everything Amelia doesn't say about herself, she implies twice as much for the world we're exploring. During her goals section, she elaborates on her investigations into HoloLive and actually alludes to the idea that HoloLive EN does in fact share a universe with JP. I wasn't ready for that fact, so I'm just gonna stick to my normal plan, and we'll get to JP in another video. But also we can confirm that in this world, all of the members actually are canonically idols and streamers. Additionally, there is some kind of magical power around being a VTuber that allows one to evaporate and capture souls even before death, as well as connect to and manipulate people's sanities. In like a magical way, not like parasocially. But also parasocially? These magical reasons could be part of why HoloLive continues to attract various mythical beings and magical creatures. They're all actually who they say they are, not characters. Amelia is just the tinfoil-hatted conspiracy theorist that discovered the truth of the organization. But once she figured it all out, instead of being silenced, she was invited to join the organization instead. Now what could that mean? Well, let's say Amelia had informed others or the internet of what she'd been researching beforehand. What does that do to her theories if she suddenly disappeared or was shut up out of nowhere? It adds legitimacy. If she needed to be kept quiet, then that means there was something about which to keep her quiet. But let's say you add her to the group. allow her to continue the investigation at her own leisure and publicly as part of the organization. Now you've completely removed the legitimacy of her actions because everything she says or discovers is just wrapped into the ongoing story you've been concocting. Thus, the theory sits as such. HoloLive exists in our world, all the members are exactly who and what they say they are, and have created a company to allow one another to manipulate the magic inherent in VTubing for their own benefit. What I'm saying is, trust no VTuber. They've accessed dark magics and are attempting to steal away something from you. Whether it be your soul, heart, mind, or akasupas, they're all after something and have found a powerful way to obtain it. I am broken. Now, before we start getting into the really confusing stuff, let's explore and address some smaller notes from outside the debuts. First off, some of you may be saying, if HoloLive takes place in our world, what about HoloLive Alternative? Well, as the name implies, that's an alternative take on those characters' stories. Their official site even says as much. At least I think that's what it's saying. Either way, that means that if you want me to go through the world of Alternative, let me know down below. You know what? 5,000 likes on this video and I'll do it. Also, subscribe and ring the bell. It's the easiest way to know when I drop one of these videos, and I'll be dropping fun stuff in between them too, so look forward to all of that. I have a lot of stuff coming. Next note, Kiara's re-debut. Funny in the meta context, absolutely baffling in a lore context. For those unaware, Kiara's channel was once banned on YouTube. Once her channel was reinstated, she decided to redo her debut as a phoenix is reborn from its ashes. Here's the confusing part. As her lore states in both debuts, whenever she's reborn, it's in a new dimension. So how is she in our dimension again? Also, she forgot her old life, but she says it'll come back, so that's not really an issue. How is she still in our dimension? Okay. Either there's a series of Kiaras looping around the dimensions, and we cycled out one for a Kiara from a nearly identical dimension, or, and I cannot believe I'm saying this unironically, Phoenix deaths are QPU aligned. Because if this is the same Kiara, that means she must have died so hard that she warped all the way back into the same universe. Unfortunately, neither of these explain whether or not hell is exempt from the multiverse. Another fun question is which songs are actually canon to the character's stories or career. For example, Kiara's songs are very in line with her image of having used to be an idol and a warrior. They don't really tell stories, but it's believable that the character of Kiara did actually release these songs, and holy shit, does Sparks slap! To understand Gura's song Reflection, I have to introduce you to someone very important. This is Carl Jung, famed psychoanalyst and father of analytical psychology. I bet a lot of you are very confused right now, but even if you haven't heard of Jung specifically, you've most likely heard of his work, as he's extraordinarily influential in almost all forms of psychological and literature analysis. Though the most important theory we need for right now is his theory on the psyche in terms of the shadow and the persona.
Persona!
Yes, like that persona. And if you've played Persona 4, then you'll likely already sort of know what I'm about to say, as it's a core element to the story. In short, the shadow is the true self, an expansion of Freud's concept of the id. The shadow is the selfish, depressed, angry, dark part of who you are. It's all the negative emotions and denials about yourself that we cast away and deny. It's the parts of ourselves that we see in others and resent because we can't accept it or we feel guilty about it. Since we obviously don't really want to share that with the world, we develop personas, kind of like different masks to put on depending on who we're with that represent a part of our true selves, but are also rigid depictions of ourselves so that we can fit into society. However, when you can surface parts of the shadow and confront the deficiencies and problems you find in yourself, you'll be able to walk away more confident in who you are. That's what happens over and over in Persona 4. That's what happens in Reflection. Gur's reflection is her shadow. She's being confronted by the doubts, shame, and angry parts of who she is, and ends the song in a happier and more confident place now that she's accepted those thoughts and processed them. As for Violet, the song itself doesn't actually say much in terms of lore, unless you look at the video. Now this is mostly speculation based on relatively little evidence, but I believe this song is actually about Ina's first love and possibly heartbreak from before she found the Necronomicon that gave her her powers. If this is correct, then we even get to see what Ina looked like before the tentacles started to take over. Now when it comes to Callie's songs, they almost all tell some kind of story about her job, her past, or her emotions towards being an idol and interacting with us. So it's easy to believe that all of those songs are certainly canon to her character. Meanwhile, there are some songs that are clearly not canon, and a few that are debatable due to their content being contradictory to her established lore, or just not really clear enough to either confirm nor deny if they're really about her, if Callie the character wrote them, or are just songs. But because there's so many, I'm just gonna throw up a list of which ones I think are canon, and if you want me to go into it further, tell me down below. Though one of them will actually come up later, so get excited for that. I feel like there was something else I'm forgetting. Kiara, she showed me some kind of room. There was like a massage chair or something. Strange, I can't remember. Oh well, I guess we'll end myth on this note. The Zamal's are canonically from another universe, which means there are multiple Kiaras in different universes, meaning the Kiara in the re-debut could have been a different one than the one we actually knew, but she just came from a very similar universe. Alright, let's finally move on by saying hello to Irys, HoloLive EN's virtual singer. Part of Project Hope, Irys is a Nephilim, half angel, half demon, who descended to bring us all hope. Something I could really use right now. This, however, is her second awakening. She once brought hope to the paradise during the ancient age, but now that our time has been filled by despair and desperation, she has returned to deliver hope through her songs. Not so conveniently for us, Irys supposedly does not speak of anything before her second awakening, though whether it's due to her embodying hope and always pushing forward, or perhaps something darker, we'll never be sure. And that's pretty much all we get from her actual debut. Seeing as how Irys is a V-singer though, we'd be hard-pressed not to discuss how her songs apply. Caesura of Despair is simply a song version of her saying that we can always find hope and she's here to show it to us. Diorama seems to be her speaking to herself and reminding herself that the future is yet unwritten, so her mission, however seemingly dire or pointless, must carry on because there will always be a chance of her success. But being a Nephilim, Diorama's hopeful, angelic message is contrasted by Here Comes Hope. This song embraces the darkness more, pointing out the taint of evil in humanity, and alludes to this idea of hope at all costs. The demonic part of Irys will ensure a better world, even if it involves enforcing her own black and white image of good and bad. Sparks of Joy is about a day out on the town. Also gentrification? Journeying through Journey, Only in Hope simply says that she can only do so much to provide hope if we don't open our eyes and accept it and work to make it a reality. Also, I'm gonna be honest here, when writing this script, I came back to Irys' songs after doing all the council stuff, and I really don't have the energy to think of a way to explain the "my God" lines without context from the next section, so I'm just gonna leave it at, there's a lot of gods, and one of them sent Irys, and then you can keep that in mind for later on. Joy With You is Irys finding happiness and joy in humans and her wanting to join them in this pleasure. Meanwhile, Nameless Sadness is the exact opposite. The world is such a sad and miserable place that even the harbinger of hope is thinking of giving up. Bare Your Teeth is much the same sentiment as Nameless Sadness, but from the more demonic perspective. It's not sad that there's all this sadness and darkness, it's a poison that's corrupting her and the world to the point she'd rather choke herself than breathe in our madness. Sink Again, Rise Again. Man, this EP is really pessimistic, huh? Joy With You was so happy, then just 3 songs in a row about how miserable everything is and how much Irys wants to give up, die, or never see the sun rise again. At least Flower of Hope sort of brings us back to the hopeful and happy message of Irys by having her remember that no matter how heartbroken or dark the hearts of humans may be, there's a bud of hope in everyone, and it's that little seed that she's working to protect and grow. Actually, See the World probably gives us more closure and clarification on the conflicting messages in Journey. The angel and demon halves are in conflict with one another and constantly fill her with both fear and joy for the world and its future. She realizes that these dual hearts are what makes her uniquely suited for this task, and it's only by reconciling these two together that she can find the true path towards hope. Finally, Akatsuki Tohana just uses a few pieces of imagery we've seen in past songs, i.e. hope as budding flowers, but isn't really a clear story or message, and the same can be said for Till the End of Me. I hope you all were able to follow all of that, because shit's about to get very confusing. Welcome to your new religion. So you remember that part where Irys said she never talks about her past?
So that was a fucking lie.
Welcome to the prelude. In the beginning, the four gods created space, a collection of textures and principles. However, with textures and concepts floating boundless, they created chaos. Thus, nature was created to provide context to these textures, but nature was more or less living statues with no purpose, so the gods added time, which then allowed nature to grow and evolve. Once they'd evolved enough, some of the creatures desired more, which led to the gods granting them knowledge. With knowledge came the birth and growth of civilization. However, civilization's growth was a danger to the order of the universe since it wasn't directly crafted by the gods. Civilization corrupted nature, time bound civilization and nature through aging and death, and the ongoing conflict between space and time came to a head. In the end, the four gods found order in chaos. By creating avatars for the main concepts of the universe and chaos, they deemed that chaos shall govern the world via a council of their avatars. With this, the four gods entered their ongoing slumber. I'm kinda just really hoping to those gods that that summarization made any sense, because I have no clue how to make it any simpler. Also, interesting fact, we can pinpoint the moment Callie was born thanks to these videos. Since Callie says she came into existence when life did, we have to ask the question of what counts as life. Is it the creation of nature, living things, or time, since the living things can now grow and die? Can something count as being alive if they can't grow or die? Well, thanks to Graveyard Shift, we know the answer. In the song, Callie says,
"It's always been like first since the earth stood still."
I don't know about you, but that sure sounds like the moment nature was created, but didn't grow or move due to there being no time. Thus, Callie was born at the same time as nature was created. But I digress. These 5 avatars are the council of VTubers we've come to know and love. And I think they're here to ease our pain until the end of the world? I swear we'll get to their debuts eventually. According to the PV, something or someone known as the Manipulator has become active and seems to be bringing about the end of the world. This fate is apparently unavoidable as even the gods, no, I don't know why that's in quotes, can't stop it. Enter the council and a bunch of statements I do not understand. But you can bet your ass we're gonna try. Space. Where does the difference lie between 0 and 1? First of all, that's supposed to be a question, HoloLive. The only way to save the void is to validate the existence of space. What I'm pretty sure this is supposed to mean is that to prevent everything from being seen as nothing, we must prove that it is something. That doesn't make sense either. Okay, so in binary, 0 means no and 1 means yes. In other words, 0 is nothing and 1 is something. Now, if you think about space as a concept, space is the emptiness we're surrounded by. If we claim that emptiness is nothing, then it's no more than an endless void. But if we can validate its existence as the term space, then this nothing suddenly becomes something. So the question becomes, where does the difference lie between nothingness and somethingness? The only way to prevent us from viewing emptiness as nothingness is to validate its existence by claiming it to be something on its own. Did that make sense? No? Luckily, this next one is pretty simple. It's just a really weird way to say humans don't appreciate all the blessings nature has given them. Time is similarly simple once decoded. Ever since we realized that time marched forward and began to measure it, our mortality became even more obvious. Everything we do is measured against time and bound to the concept of time. Civilization is pretty self-explanatory. It's proof that humans have made progress, but we must also acknowledge the role of thought and the individual in civilization's growth. Constantly pushing towards a false sense of progress will only lead to our demise. And then there's chaos. This one seems simple, but philosophically there's a lot to talk about here. Basically, they're saying that order cannot exist with chaos existing in some form. However, removing all sense of order is even more dangerous. With no sense of obligation, desire, or need comes lethargy or a sense of being overwhelmed. You'll either end up feeling no need to do anything or feel the need to do so much that you end up doing nothing. Like summer vacation when you were a kid. There's so much of everything you could do, so you end up sitting in your room staring at the ceiling thinking about all the things you could be doing. Living creatures need some sense of reason to continue on, and when humans have created so many other things to do, then the sense of order needed to do those things has increased exponentially. Wait, I just remembered that this video started with a threat of the end of the world? Also, is it just me, or is it kind of fucked up to hear the harbinger of hope telling us that the world is going to end soon and there's literally nothing we can do to stop it? Whatever, we got VTubers to watch. Finally, we're back to actual debuts. Starting with Sana, she just kind of starts by explaining the origins of all things, but in the context of the Big Bang. And not the lore that we just went through, and I may be having an aneurysm. And then she's just gonna go ahead and force me to let it sink in. It's happening. It's sinking in.
20 minutes later.
I fixed my lighting. It's brighter now. You're just gonna have to deal with that. So, that was the most pessimistic lore I've seen yet. Basically, the universe made everything by accident. Now Sana is here to tell our dumbasses that we just need to chill a bit about it. Additionally, according to this little blurb, Sana is a member of the council and represents space. All things we knew. Once arriving in our realm, she decided to get into astrology for a reason not specified and... Wait, hold on. However, she soon stumbled unknowingly upon the forbidden truth and turned into an apostle for the Ancient Ones? Like Ina? I have no clue what to do with this information. Sure, it makes sense that the Ancient Ones are from space, that's normal Eldritch stuff, but wouldn't being an apostle for them while on the council be a conflict of interests? Isn't she supposed to represent the gods? Do the other members not know that she's working for the Ancient Ones? What is the forbidden truth? Does it have anything to do with the manipulator? What the fuck is anything that I'm saying? I guess we'll try to come back to that later. Then we get an explanation of what constitutes space. Kind of OP if you ask me, but I digress. And since we don't fully understand space yet, we can't fully understand Sana's actions or speech. And now I know why I've never understood Australians. Also, we've got Yatagarasu, a majestic three-legged crow who looks like this little orange worm boy to us so that our brains don't melt. More importantly, however, is that he's a Shinto god of the sun. What? How many gods are there? Because we've got the big four, who are all sleeping after leaving the council behind, the council themselves, which are only avatars of concepts, not gods, but still hold immense godlike power, the Ancient Ones, which it's unclear if they count as gods or not, whoever Irys' god is, and now Yatagarasu, who is a god, but not one of the big four, and considering he's a Shinto god, implies that at least the entire Shinto pantheon exists, but that they aren't as powerful or important as the big four. Now, I'm not quite sure what's the right call here, so I'm going to tell you and let you decide how you want to interpret this part of the lore. I know that sounds like a cop-out when interpreting the lore is supposed to be my whole job here, but hopefully you'll understand. See, Yatagarasu in Shintoism is not the god of the sun. That would be Amaterasu. Meanwhile, Yatagarasu is actually a god of guidance and an incarnation of the sun. So if Sana's little worm boy is the Yatagarasu of Shintoism, which is heavily implied given he's got the same name, connection to the sun, and is also a three-legged crow, then she's wrong about him being a god of the sun. But if we're to say everything that the VTubers say must be the correct canon, then this Yatagarasu is the god of the sun, and we are left with no clue as to what other gods are out there since we can't base it on Shintoism anymore. Plus, saying everything the VTubers say is canon could potentially open up a massive bag of worms full of potential contradictions and bizarre points across their many streams. I hope you see my dilemma here, and I'm just gonna let you all decide whether or not Sana just made a mistake about Yatagarasu's title, or if the canon of HoloLive differs from Shintoism. And then Sana destroys the Irys, so I guess we're all just canonically dead at this point, and anything else in the lore that doesn't make sense from now on can be explained away with that. Once again, we're treated to a lore story that doubles as a science lesson, only this time explaining how the Earth came to be and evolved into the planet we now know. I'd explain it, but you've probably heard the whole thing in school like 15 times. Unless you live in the American South or Midwest, in which case you were probably just told that Earth was created in 7 days.
Space was no longer alone. Nature had claimed her place in the universe.
And so, as nature was born, so too was its keeper. Taking the form of a Kirin, Sarah's fauna was born as Mother Nature's avatar. Bro, same. Also, we're all canonically murdered again. Now you may be wondering, but if we're all dead, how can we die again? And how are we still here watching you make up shit about VTubers? Well, apparently Fauna has the power to revive all of us using her golden apple. That's convenient. Fauna is obviously a member of the council and is the keeper of nature, which, as we all remember, is the second concept made by the big four gods. Shedding her original Kirin form, Fauna herself has chosen to enter our realm in an attempt to save nature. Apparently, nature also counts as all organic matter on Earth, except humans. This is an interesting little fact because it must mean that once we were gifted knowledge by the gods and began to create artificial tools, we officially left the domain of what is natural despite being organic creatures. Also, it says her voice has healing properties and... yeah.
I've always viewed myself as more of a big sister type, one-san type.
Yes! Cool. Good for you.
You can call me Mama if you want.
1 second. Don't mind me, carry on.
It just doesn't feel right. You should be with me. You belong with me. But don't worry. I'll take good care of you.
Okay, I guess I should at least finish this video before going off the grid. So things are about to get mildly confusing. Crony's autocratic aspirations aside, she claims that they're all supposed to just be concepts. But that's not right. They were all concepts, but were given the form of these avatars well after the concepts were formed. Do all of these avatars cease existing when not in council meetings? That can't be true though, because we hear of Fauna having her Kirin form, and Sana's story implies that she hangs around in her human form too. If they're not supposed to be in the human realm, sure, that makes sense, but to say they're only concepts implies that they aren't what they are, avatars and personifications of the concepts. But maybe I'm also thinking about this way harder than anyone involved did. Scratch that, I definitely am. Anyways, Crony is the Warden of Time and claims to be the one most intrinsically linked with mankind. I'd say that's debatable considering mankind created civilization and is why we don't count as nature anymore, but there is actually a solid argument here as to why she believes so. Humans were responsible for quantifying and qualifying time as a concept. It used to be that time just happened. We began to assign and measure time to an infinite degree of qualifiers. Day, night, dawn, dusk, hours, minutes, seconds, so on and so forth. Through this act, humans ended up creating a prison for themselves as we now are forced to measure every action we take and our very being against time. I did already kind of explain this earlier, but I felt it was good to expand on it here because this jail metaphor is where Crony got her title as a warden. With all the power that humanity has given time, Crony has only grown more prideful and sadistic. In a sense, she's become a warrior and a reaper herself, using her blades to rip through countless souls as she marches ever forward. Also, this shit's horny as fuck. Now, Crony's debut ends with her saying she rewound time past when everyone else existed, so for all of our sakes, we're just gonna say that was a bit and not go down the we're all in Crony's deranged imagination hole again. Just kidding, that was actually canon too. So you know how everything is wrong when trying to figure out time travel? Too bad, we don't have a choice this time. Crony rewound time before all of us existed and thus erased everything that we've been through. After falling asleep for eons, however, Mume confirms that everything that we experienced before the rewind happened exactly as it did before. This seems simple enough, time must then be cyclical. Everything will always happen the way it did. Except it can't be cyclical because that would mean we never get to Crony's debut because she'd always rewind time to before the universe existed. Thus, according to the canon, we should never have experienced the debut of Crony. The only way to reconcile this is by saying that time is a Schrodinger's VHS tape. When you're watching the tape, everything you've seen in the movie is certain. You know what's happened. Rewinding the tape isn't going to change the story in any way. But everything further in is unknown. This movie could go anywhere, and you won't know what's going to happen until it does. If you stopped the tape and walked away, the movie will forever sit in a state of this infinite possibility. So as far as we've seen, history and time must be predetermined. If Crony rewinds it, it will play out the same way because we already know the results. However, the future is forever in a state of flux, and we can never be sure of how it will play out until we witness it. Anything and everything is possible in the future. Once we experience it, however, it's set in stone. Nothing can alter it. Basically, because Crony exists outside of time, because she is time, she is the only one exempt from this rule. And since she was asleep when she reached the same point of the VHS as before, we were able to continue on with an undetermined future and could reach Mumei's debut. That's basically what Mumei's intro video proves to us. Also, she kind of points out the flaws with the others, and I think that's funny because leave it to the avatar of unnatural human evolution to mock the natural concepts. By the way, that is canon. Mumei explicitly states that she is representative of our efforts. Even her choice to be an owl can be seen as representative of the fact humans tend to personify everything we can, and how to humans, owls represent wisdom. And despite chronicling our history, she forgets most of it. Just like us. Now, here's where we have to address a rather interesting point. Mumei's book says not created by the gods. If we take this to mean civilization as a whole or concept, that is correct. The canon states that civilization was not created nor controlled by the gods. It was a wholly human creation. However, if we're speaking about Mumei as an avatar, we have to start questioning some things. According to Omen, the conflict between the concepts is what led to the gods creating the avatars. The implication of this is that one of the avatars was Mumei. Though if she says that she wasn't created by the gods, we have to wonder if that humanity and civilization as a whole is so powerful that it led to the creation of an avatar being birthed to represent them without the interference of the gods, or if she just forgot. And that's a very real possibility. And if you were wondering, the writing on friend just says friend. Finally, we've reached Bales Hakos.
My name is pronounced Bells Hakos.
Bill's Heckus?
Bells Hakos.
Okay.
Bells actually allows us to take a quick moment to talk about something I glossed over before. Every member of the council has actually had a different title that gives context to their perceived roles as avatars for their domains. Sana is the speaker of space, the voice of the void, the something to space's nothing. Vana is the keeper of nature. She tends to and ensures its ongoing growth. We already mentioned how Crony is the warden of time, and how she leans more towards the hard-ass prison-style warden than simply an overseer. Then came Mumei, the guardian of civilization. As the avatar for the only concept not created by the gods, it only makes sense that she feels a need to defend, protect, and justify the very existence that gave her being. Bells is chaos.
The other council members have these really fancy titles. I don't have that.
That's it. No title. Just chaos. Every other member has been an avatar of their concepts, in charge of managing and representing them. Bells is the actual embodiment of chaos. Chaos given form. And that's pretty much it from Bells. And honestly, I'm kind of relieved by that. But you know what comes next. Songs. Let's go in reverse order, because, I don't know, I feel like it. Play Dice is pretty much just what I think goes on in Bay's head all the time. A New Start is the auditory embodiment of mankind's desire to explore, progress, and expand. Unbound by space, time, nature, or even chaos, we continue on to endless beginnings. Daydream, on the other hand, actually may have a lot to say about the lore. As we discussed very briefly before, the reason the council came to us was to ease our pain and fear as we march towards the inevitable end of this world at the hands of the manipulator. Several lines in this song allude to this role, as Crony sings of how she weeps for our impending destruction, as well as hoping to see us smiling on our final day. Now there's one line that, quite honestly, kinda grossed me out, and I felt it came completely out of nowhere, and it's this one. See, in English, that means the throbbing moon or the moon is throbbing. And either way you look at that, it doesn't have any good implications. There's nothing that upsets me more than the idea of this celestial body made of stone throbbing. But then it hit me. The moon is the manipulator. Whatever it is or is residing therein will be our downfall. So if at any point you see the moon undulating, just turn on your favorite council member and allow them to ease your woes. Except for, just maybe, Sana. No, this isn't me just being an auntie, because I'd also say to avoid Ina. What's the only thing that we know is so powerful as to corrupt even a divine avatar of one of the core concepts of creation? The Ancient Ones. Sana learned of the forbidden truth after hearing their voices and became an apostle for them. Where is the moon? Space. An ancient, sleeping, unknowable, and unstoppable force waking from inside of the moon sounds pretty damn eldritch to me. This very well could be the forbidden truth, and it was Sana who convinced the rest of the council to join her in making us feel better before our inevitable doom. She was the first to debut after all, and had no qualms in destroying the Earth herself because she knew it was going to happen eventually. Sana is working on behalf of the Ancient Ones to lull us into a state of complacency so we do nothing to try and stop the manipulator from devouring us all. But if we were destined to be destroyed so soon, why would another god send Irys to us? Give us hope for the future where we're all going to be annihilated by some throbbing moon beast? No, there is hope. We do have a chance. Our VHS hasn't played out yet. We are humanity. We were the ones who surpassed space, time, and nature to become so powerful as to develop a concept on the same level as the rest, and it is up to us to embrace the chaos of what could be and to write our future, to stop the manipulator. In conclusion, as is the case with any creation myth, Council's lore gets very messy when you start to consider actual scientific history. And for some reason, the Council is very adamant about implying that said scientific history is also canon to their creation. We can assume that some part, if not all of the Prelude and Omen videos is what actually happened because the Council's very existence proves that it happened. The issue becomes that the debuts all continue this in their bios, but have backstory videos that claim that the Big Bang created space, the dust in space slowly formed the planets, etc. The problem there is that after the Big Bang, time had to exist before nature since it took time for Earth to come together and nature to thrive. Without time, space would have stayed an infinite field of dust. Thus, the concepts could not have been formed in the order that Prelude claims they were. Either that, or we're entering some insane quantum physics shit, and I've pretended to know what I'm saying enough for one video. Oh, and don't forget Omega Alpha, because they may just be God, like the God. Also, their Twitter bio says they know things about HoloLive English, and I can finally, officially say, same, bro.